Thanks for having me here. It's really nice to be here. I graduated from the BBA program in 2000. I run a software company called CodeRyte. Itself is a little bit of a hack. What we do, who's used OpenTable? Yeah, okay. Or heard of OpenTable. So OpenTable lets you make a reservation at a restaurant. It's free. You can do it on your mobile phone. We do the same thing for the ER and urgent care. So instead of sitting at the ER for 4 hours, you can go online. You guys can do it right now. And you can see the first available time, and you can put your name in a sense, tell them that you're coming. And when you go in, they treat you like they've been waiting right away, and you go in right away and they treat you. It's a bit of a hack on the hospital, with their permission. And hospitals actually like this, they pay us to do that. So I'm going to talk today. I've been running this company for 2 years. Before that, I've done a lot of healthcare software companies. And I'm going to talk about what I've learned, some things that have surprised me along the way. So, first slide. So let's start with the quiz. I have a small prize for anyone who can get it. Does anyone know what board this is?
Emory.
Show of hands. What? You in the back. You would guess.
Allen Associates.
Allen Associates. Okay.
Board of Regents?
Board of Regents. Anyone else? No? No? Okay. Good. Well, this is a tough one. You're not supposed to. This is the Bank of Belgium. And the reason I showed it is because this is what most people think of when they think of their board of directors. They think of 10 people, mostly old white guys. If you're lucky, maybe an old white female. Recently, that's changing a little bit, but this is your prototypical board. But the fact is, whether you realize it or not, when you're funding a startup, you have another board. And every company, I would think, has 2 boards. And that is your board at home. Because when you're running a startup, there's a number of decisions that you have to make that are impacted by what is going on at home. And what you do impacts what happens at home and vice versa. This is my other board. This is my wife, Katie, and my daughter, Larkin. Katie's also an Emory alum. She got her PhD here. Larkin would be Emory class of like 2035 or something. So everyone has 2 boards, whether you realize it or not. And your spouse is your business partner, whether or not you realize it. I thought this cartoon was kind of funny. And the fact is, the amount of risk that you can take on, the ability to travel for long periods of time, the ability to pull all-nighters, to do the kind of crazy things that come with working at a startup. Your spouse better be along for that ride, or you won't have a spouse for that much longer. Keep going. So another thing I learned is the importance of sampling. Who's heard of Lean Startup? Okay, a lot of people. If you haven't, you should read it. And I'm not here to talk about Lean Startup. But the basic premise of the Lean Startup, I think in a lot of startups, is you've got to get your product in the marketplace, and you've got to get people trying. Market research, I would actually argue, is worth very little in a startup, because by the time you do the research, let's assume you even do the research correctly and tell you the results, your competitors will have latched. The most important thing is to do what you guys are doing here this weekend. Build something fast, get it out there, and learn from it. And the quickest way to do that is to give a little bit of your product away, not the whole thing, but give it away and let people sample. That's what grocery stores do all the time. Walking in grocery stores, there's always some company. Typically, by the way, they're startup food companies. They're trying to get you to try their whatever it is, the 400th variation of Greek yogurt. The sample for free. Now, to make that happen, you got to capitalize your business to allow sampling. Right? So what we did with ER Express when we raised our seed capital was we made sure we had enough so we could give our product away to the first 25 hospitals for free. Right? And we had to make sure we could build the product for cheap. And that product was very, very, very bad. It was embarrassingly bad. I look at it, and I can't believe that anyone used it. But they did. Primarily because they were getting it for free. But the amount that we learned in the first 6 months from giving the product away was tremendous because they were not shy about telling us what they liked, but more so what they didn't like. They said, this doesn't work, and we need this over here, and it would be nice if they did this. We had more feedback in the first 6 months than we knew what to do with it. And then we could build the product that people were going to pay. So allow people to sample, make sure you have enough cash in the bank, so you can give away the product. You can build the sample and give away the sample. That doesn't mean you have to give the product away for a long time. It doesn't mean you have to give away the product to everyone. Just enough to get in the marketplace and get people using it. Why like this? This is a pretty monumental mistake. And I would say, don't drive your delivery truck into your customer's house. But fail a lot. Fail early, fail often. Make lots of small mistakes. We make small mistakes all the time. We've rolled out products that no one used. We've added features that we thought were nice and they didn't work, or they worked and no one wanted to use them. But before we made big bets or big platform bets, we made lots of small changes to make sure that we weren't driving the Wienermobile into someone's garage. So I'm sure you guys know who this is. And probably my favorite moment, one of my favorite moments in the books is when a young Voldemort, this is like the 4th or 5th book, the young Voldemort comes back to Hogwarts, and he's just recruited kind of the first set of Death Eaters. And he wants a job. And he's still not kind of completely a bad guy. And he, of course, was very well regarded in a lot of ways at Hogwarts as a student. He's probably 2 years out. And so he interviews with Dumbledore, and Dumbledore asks, and he's almost kind of, he's suspicious of Voldemort. And Voldemort, doesn't understand why he's not getting the job. And he says, look, I've got the skills, I'm good at what I do. And then he finally says, and he tells Dumbledore, he said, look, I'll be here at your beck and call to do whatever it is you want me to do. And and Dumbledore says, I know that, but what about the people who are waiting outside, who are going to be at your beck and do what you want? He's talking about the Death Eaters, of course. Because he knows if he hires Voldemort, he's in effect hiring Voldemort's followers. So when you have a startup, recruit constantly. Recruit before you need people. Recruit all the time. But recruit carefully. Because the people that you hire are going to in turn be the people who are making those hiring decisions for you. And when you're small, when there's 5 people, you'll get to sign off on all those hires, and you'll interview them. You'll get to a point where you can't interview everyone and you're signing off on everyone. And you'll get to a point where you're big enough where you will meet someone in the hallway and you'll say, who the hell are you? And they'll say, I work. You may be selling to your boss that this is a good idea. You may be selling to your peers that this is the right architecture for our app, or this is the right look and feel. Or you might be that person, that poor person that gets up every morning, gets on a plane, goes somewhere, especially if you're in a B2B business. You get on a plane and you say, hey, how about this? And they say, no, what else you got? And I say, well, I hope you like that because I don't want anything else. And you have to get up and say, so you're telling me there's a chance. We do business with a hospital system in Florida called Baptist Health. Large health system, kind of the dominant health system. And is anyone from Pensacola, by the way? And they were one of the first hospitals that I called them. We gave them a pitch, did it over the phone, they liked it. They said, come down to Pensacola. I was super excited. I've been running the business for like a month. And all right, and get someone to sign up. And I came down, did the pitch. There were some things they liked, some things they didn't like. And kind of as soon as it was over, the head person said, look, I really appreciate you coming down. I didn't want to tell you this before you started your pitch, but we just started this other IT project, and there's just no way we're going to be able to do this. And I said, so you're telling me there's a chance? I said, can I call you in 6 months? And she said, sure. So I called her in 6 months, And I said, well, how's the project going? She said, well, you know, it's going okay. However, this other vendor that is providing this kind of big enterprise-wide system says that they can do what you do, and we've already bought their software. And I said, no. I said, well, what if it doesn't work? Because I don't think it actually does what we do. Can I call you in 6 months? She said, yeah. I said, well, so you're telling me there's a chance. So then I called her in another 6 months. And she said, yeah, that vendor didn't know what they were talking about. It doesn't do what you guys do. She said, the thing is, I'm retiring this year. And there hasn't been a replacement named, and they're not even taking any new initiatives. So the only way we can do this is if you can implement it before I retire. And I said, here's my chance. So that's healthcare. They use ER Express. They've been on it for a year and a half, and they love it. And they're a Romans customer. All right, so you can get told no a lot. You just gotta say, so you're saying there's a chance. Final one. Do you guys know who this is? Yeah, you know Earl. Earl is great. Earl is one of my favorite professors here. And Earl has a lot of good advice if you can get to know him, but my favorite here is people who ask for more get more. And he ends every class, I mean, like at the end of the semester, he shares his kind of pearls of wisdom. And I think this is one of the best, is people who ask for more get more. And I would say this cuts across everything we do, not just in business, but life. Is, you wake up in the morning, and if you can say, hey, people who ask, you gotta be nice. You're a jerk about it, it doesn't work so well. But if you're nice about it, this really has a way of working out really well. And kind of, it works all the time for me, and sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it does, and I think of Earl every time. So I like to finish my, when I give these talks with a picture of him, because I think he's great, I think he's done a lot for the school, and I think his advice is extremely valuable. So let me stop. We got started a little late, so we're kind of running it just a little time, but I want to take questions for a few minutes, and then we'll move from there. Yeah.
So how did you get into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, ER Express specifically.
Right.
So I was living in Washington where my wife's job had taken us, and she's a clinical psychologist, and she wanted to do something else. And we thought about where we were going to live, and she applied a bunch of things, and she ended up getting a job offer at the CDC to make the switch into public health. So I had to look for a job in Atlanta, and we had lived here before. And I knew the private equity, the company that provided my seed capital. I had known them from just, actually I worked for them once before, a long time ago, like 10 years ago. And I got in touch with them just to say, hey, do you think you could just kind of help me network a little bit around Atlanta? And they said, yeah, we can do that. I said, also, we're thinking of putting some money into this idea. We don't have anyone to run it. And those kind of opportunities don't happen all the time. I said, sure, I'll do that. Good question, go ahead.
So working in the healthcare industry with hospitals who are especially pressed to spend their dollars carefully, what kind of value proposition are you offering them that they're so willing to take on your service? Yeah,
good question. So why are they willing to write the check? Yeah, so the metrics we have say about 1 in 2 people that use our service said it influenced which hospital they pick. Because the experience of sitting in an ER for 3 hours is miserable. And that's not a hard sell. So consumers like it because anything less than 3 hours is good. And is that hard sell? And hospitals like it because we drive market share. And it works. That's a simple answer. Yeah, in the back.
Regarding finding your first customers and getting them aside from, so you're telling me there's a chance, what were strategies that you did, especially in the very beginning, and things that did not work, things that worked, and
things that worked, and how did we find our first customers? So the way we found our first customers actually goes a little bit back to when I was talking to the private equity guys about doing this. And what I could bring to the table and what I could. And I would say whatever situation you're in, be very honest with yourself about what you're bringing to the table. So I told them what I brought to the table was, I had business experience, I knew healthcare, I understood software. I'd worked in M&A on the buy side. So I knew, or I had some grounding in how to look at small companies and how do you spot valuable companies, and then how do you want to, should you buy them or not? And now obviously private equity company, they want an exit.
You just cold call?
A little bit. We do a lot of cold calling now. So when I talked to them, I said, look, these are the things I know how to do. I told them, I don't know how to write code. I don't know how to write industrial strength code. I can, mess around a little bit.
Actually, this question was kind of like what I meant. Like, did you try cold calling more, like walking to places in person? How did you get the decision? I did. Well, I'm long-winded, so give me a minute to. So I told them, I was like, I really know how to write code, and I don't have a list of like 30 CEOs. I run the business. And they said, okay. They said, we can help you with that. They said, we have been in healthcare. All the companies they funded for the most part in healthcare. So they said, we'll call 10 or 15 CEOs and get you an introductory conversation. So that helped tremendously, right? So that's the definition of what people call value-added capital, right? There's people that can write checks, they're doing the right checks, and they can help you. You want the latter, right? Rich uncles and aunts do the former. Professional investors do the latter. Professional investors do the latter. If they don't do the latter, they're just rich aunt and uncle. And certainly a lot of cold calling, and a lot of, I think my first day there, I called, I'd worked at healthcare software companies, so I called all the salespeople I used to work with. I said, hey, here's what I'm doing, can you help me get in? And a lot of them couldn't, or they didn't have the right call point, but, if even one of them helped. But yeah, it is a lot of pounding the pavement, a lot of cold calling, a lot of cold emailing. You go to trade shows, stand in front of your booth, people come up, trade cards, and then you plead with them to do your thing. Go ahead.
So what prompted the entry, well it's kind of two-pronged, what prompted the entry into a market that already had a pre-existing larger competitor, and how do you distinguish and compete with the existing larger?
That's a great question. So why go into a market that has an established competitor, and then how do you compete with that? So the first answer is completely non-scientific. I needed a job. And they were offering me a job. That really is like the realism of a lot of startups, is people, they have something they want to do or they like, and they see an opportunity. And the reality is, there isn't a spreadsheet that tells you to do it or do it. And even if there is, you have to at some level have an irrational belief in your own ability to do it. Because if you're rational about it, you'd go work at GE or McKinsey. And I worked in consulting, before, so I've done those jobs. I'm not saying those aren't good jobs, but those are rational decisions, right? Doing a startup is not a rational decision. You have to have completely irrational belief that you're going to do this. Now, I will say that, kind of putting on my business school hat, there is a big difference between a space that has like one competitor and one that has like 30. So I run a business unit, part of a business unit in a prior job where there was like 7 competitors, and every hospital used one of those 7. We were one of the 7. And you woke up every day, and what you tried to do is convince the hospital that their current vendor was bad, and so bad they should kick them out and bring you in, and tell your existing customers that you weren't so bad that they should kick you out. And it's a terrible way to make a living. It's just a grind, and you eke it out, and the growth is like this. So I knew I didn't want to do that, right? One competitor. There's 6,000 hospitals and 12,000 urgent cares. That's a lot of places to call. They can't. They're not going to get all of them, right? There's a lot of ways to be successful. To have, you don't have the #1 market share to be successful. You also have to define what success is, right? And there's a lot of ways in startup land to define success. A lot of times, what happens is, 3 or 4 companies get successful, a few others fall by the wayside, and then someone comes in and does what's called a roll-up. And they buy the 3 big players, they turn them into one kind of big behemoth. I think, you know, the jury's still out whether that'll happen in our space, but it happened in enough other places where I said, this is reasonable. I knew I wasn't going into it, 7 competitors, everyone has something. Now, how do we deal with that? You know, so you have to find something to differentiate. So, you know, the first quarter that I did it, I went out and just, you know, call as many hospitals as possible. And I don't think so much was selling them as just showing them it and say, well, what would it take for you to use it? And they would say, I would give them the pitch, and I'd say, oh, we have this cool kind of open table-like thing. And they'd say, great, what else you got? And I said, nothing. What do you think of the Braves? They said, wow, good regular season, not so good in the postseason. And then I said, well, what would you like? And people they weren't shy. And I said, well, what if you did this? And they said, well, what if, they said, you know, a lot of people come to us because they first go to their regular doctor, and the regular doctor said, whoa, you're really sick. That's not a leg cramp, that's a blood clot. Go to the ER. And they show up at the ER, but we don't know who they are. We don't know who sent them. We're not ready for them. And they say, oh, Dr. Smith sent me. And we go, who's Dr. Smith? That's a bad patient experience. They said, what if instead of doing this for like patients, you did it for doctors? And doctors could send us a reservation. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And we did that. And a lot of times they said, oh, we just saw, you know, you walk in and your competitor's like walking out. So you know they just, and I said, well, does InkQuicker have it? They go, no. And I said, if we had it, would you have it? I said, yes. And I called my developers and said, look what we're building next. And that's what we did a lot of. And so we made a bet early on, by the way, that people want more than just find a fast ER. That there's, if you can make the overall patient experience better, that is actually differentiated. Now, kind of abstract that to like what you all are doing, you have to make that decision. By the way, InkQuicker has had tremendous success. They're still bigger than us. They still have more market share. Their market cap is probably bigger than us. And they've gone it on, they do kind of one thing and they do it really well. And I think they'll continue to be successful. So it's not like there's only one way to do it. But that's how we say it. When people say, well, what makes you guys different? We say, well, they get you in the front door and that's great. But we do all this other stuff. That makes it better. Great question. I think there was something in the back. Do you have a question? No. Good. Sean, I think you're good. Thanks, guys.
So if anyone actually did have any questions but didn't want to sort of raise their hand, Sahil is here for a few minutes. And we will begin our next speaker series very soon. We're running a little late, and it will be in this room. So.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, come down and pitch eye.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to talk to Sahil about anything, he's here. And yeah, I think it was a great start to our first speaker series. I think we should really, I think it was really nice for him to come down and take time with his day, and we should definitely have him back soon. But
well, I would say this: if any of you think working in a startup is cool or glamorous, talk to Wen Hao. He will completely disabuse you of that notion. He worked for me as an intern last semester. He did great work, and he can also know what just but in general, working there.
Working for me is cool and glamorous.
Yes, great. Stuart is cool and glamorous. So do we want to do what? 5-minute break and then
sure.
Stuart?
We're gonna take about 5 to 10 minutes, and Sahil's here. But let's thank him again for coming.
Good.